Across the country and around the world, across the street and around the corner, this is Over the Culture. This is Over the Culture podcast, where you get to hear my spin on things I like music, sports entertainment, movies, TV shows, and your mom. You also get to hear about things I don't like people who always take shortcuts. And I am your bastard of ceremonies, the one gig kid, Pat Stay Black, Alex Treblack, Reefer Sutherland, Luke Fly Talker, the most interesting blurred in podcasting, the troller of trolls, the prince of petty, Steve G. And it's May 30th, 2021. You know, people who always take shortcuts. Every time, it's an inconvenience to someone at some point. Someone is picking up that slack. Someone is paying your cost as well as theirs. When everyone starts taking shortcuts, the cuts aren't so short. It's really beneficial sometimes to do things the long way. Or as Stone Cold put it, do things the hard way. Take my podcast, for example, happened in the 90s. So they have services on Fiverr where you can get someone to distribute your video and get your likes up and your views and all of that. And for one episode of Happened in the 90s, I decided to do it. The fee was only $10, and I had a little bit of spin and change at the time. And he got what he promoted. He did what he advertised. You know, he definitely got our views up for that episode, but there wasn't any spillover. It was just views for that episode. I thought that when the views go up, it's going to spill over into more subscribers, more views, more likes on the other episodes, but that wasn't the case. So it looks really bad when you're going down the episode list on our account and you see one episode has like 5,000 views and the others have like 20, 30, 40. And ultimately I pay the cost on that, and I won't do that anymore because it just looks so lopsided. And to me, as a podcaster, it looks obvious that, hey, this was someone that really paid for those views. And to me, that's a shortcut, as opposed to doing it the organic way by just really learning and having a better understanding and knowledge of this whole podcast genre. And, learning how to grow an organic audience, a natural, homegrown audience who will be faithful and loyal and will watch more than just one episode and will actually comment, not just bots. Because a lot of those services, what they're promoting is some kind of bot service. And, those subscribers that you might have increased on, they're not even real people. And because what I've noticed sometimes in the earlier episodes, there would be comments like things that don't even make sense. It would be just some gibberish. It would be a bunch of consonants jumbled up together, like some Polish last name. And ultimately, like I said, I had to pay the price on that. It's a learning lesson. And I try to apply that to anything. Sometimes it's vital to take shortcuts. Sometimes you need to kill time. If you don't need to do this, that, X, Y, and Z, take that shortcut, but not every time. Sometimes it's best, or actually a lot of times it's best to go through the process, learn the process. As Joel Embiid would say, trust the process, and then reap the benefits from that. Don't take shortcuts. So this episode is the season 2 finale of Over the Culture. Man, next week it'll be the premiere of season 3, man. I'm already at 3 seasons, man. I didn't know that I'd be doing it for this long. Now, obviously, I've taken some weeks off. I haven't been hitting them ever since 2019. But for the most part, I've covered the last 2 years, week by week, for the most part. And if you listen to those earlier episodes, I talked a lot about my job at the time. And my very first episode, I dropped the Sunday before my orientation for working at a grocery warehouse. And I was actually excited about that shit. And then the episodes after that, I'm griping about my job at the grocery warehouse because I was so done with television. Fox, or as I like to call them, fucks, they left such a bad taste in my mouth that I was completely done with television, and I thought I would never return. And even if I wanted to, I didn't think I could. The years had gone by since I got let go from that place. And I just would think, like, man, they're going to want to look for some consistency in these interviews and on these resumes. But that wasn't the case, man. Luckily, now I'm back in television at a place that's much better than Fox, more freedom than Fox could ever allow. I remember going to take a piss break, and not too long after I leave, the supervisor would be checking for me. Like, where's Steve? Did he quit? Did he leave? Did he get hit by a car? Motherfucker, I had to take a leak. They were that in your face with that shit, man. Just could not get off of your dick. And I'm so glad that is in my rear view, and I'm still going to shit on them as much as I can whenever I can. Whenever I see a possible hole to fill to say fuck fucks, fuck Fox, fuck sports, fuck y'all niggas. And man, it's had so many deviations on this show, so many different formats and restructurings, and I'm still trying to figure this thing out because the podcast genre in general it's fairly new compared to the other mediums. I mean, television and radio have been here forever, but podcast is for these internet streets. That's where it was birthed for the most part. And yeah, man, I've made it through 2 full seasons of this show. And I want to say thank the people. Thank you all, my cultivating cultivists, for tuning in. And, right now we're at a couple thousand listens, man, all because of you. A lot of that was me. I listened to myself and I try to critique and edit and, replan on how to do the next episode. And between me and my mom, we probably have like a quarter of those listens. But to you guys, I words can't express how much I appreciate that. And so please continue to listen as we go through this whole over the culture process and progress onto bigger things and getting those numbers up to the tens of thousands, the hundreds of thousands, and possibly million. But I try not to focus on that too much because, like I said before, I really am enjoying this process. When I first started, I wanted an outlet. I look at this podcast as an outlet for my thoughts on how I feel about current events and about pop culture, music, movies, TV, professional wrestling, all of that. And, I would joke with people from time to time, like, hey, if you're ever on Who Wants to Be a Millionaire, I'm that friend you call whenever you need the answer for some trivial question. But with the advent of podcasts, this gives me my outlet to just spill what I call trivial information and just my own opinion because opinions are like assholes, everyone has one. But over the culture, it's all over the place, and that's me. Conversations with me can get sidetracked a lot because a piece of candy, ooh, a piece of candy, ooh, a piece of candy. And then, just like this fucking whole monologue, very sidetracked. And Over the Culture has provided me, like I said, an outlet from the redundancy department of the redundancy department. Over the week, I saw the latest Dark Side of the Ring episode, and it featured on The Ultimate Warrior. And I've talked about this show before, Dark Side of the Ring. It's a great documentary series on different wrestlers and different things that have happened. And I mean, it sheds some light on the dark aspects, hence the name Dark Side of the Ring. And I really didn't appreciate this episode they did on Ultimate Warrior because ultimately what they did was they shat on a man who's not even with us anymore. They reburied an already buried man. And a lot of the things that they went over, it told me nothing new. Because I'm such an avid Ultimate Warrior fan, it was a lot of knowledge that I knew. They had Jake the Snake on there. They had Jim Cornette. They had Bruce Pritchard. They even had his ex-wife, the wife that he met before he had his most recent wife, who is his widow. They talked about how they met and how he just got into wrestling from being a bodybuilder and, meeting up with Sting, the great Sting, Steve Borden, and they were a tag team. And, we learned, that's the one thing I learned about him, like how he got started, and the details, the very specific fine-tuned details of all of that. But most of that stuff I already knew. And despite being a Warrior fan, I understood that he was not the greatest person, the best person to get along with. I read Bret Hart's book that he put out some years ago, and he talked about just how egotistical he was and how much he didn't really care for the craft of wrestling. He looked at it as a business, and he would eventually become one of the most successful characters in wrestling history. And when Ultimate Warrior Jim Hellwig, when he died, he finally made amends with Vince McMahon. Him and Vince were on the outs for years because of his behavior during his prime. And they came full circle, and he was finally accepted into the WWE Wrestling Hall of Fame. And, he embraced Vince. Vince embraced him. He tried to make good with all of the wrestlers that he had beefs with, Hulk Hogan, Jake the Snake. And despite them being on good terms or making amends with each other, Jake the Snake was still on this show, on Dark Side of the Ring, shitting on Jim Hellwig, on his character. But they did mention how when Warrior came back, how, he learned his lesson from his earlier life. But still, I really didn't appreciate it because it was just it was like an hour of shitting on that man, and the man can't even defend himself. And also what I didn't like about it, they didn't include his children or his widowed wife, his most recent wife. And I feel like that would have given that episode more validity. So I still appreciate the show. It's a really good show, but that one is easily my least favorite show, my least favorite episode. It was a bad look on their part, on Vice's part, and the creators of Dark Side of the Ring. They've done much better episodes that gave the full story, not just a one-sided slant. And his widowed wife, she didn't appreciate it. Dana Warrior and her children, their children, they didn't appreciate that, man. And I'm in a lot of these different fan sites, WWF and different sitcoms, and I'm in an Ultimate Warrior fan group. And a lot of us Warrior fans, we didn't appreciate that, man. Most of us who followed the man throughout his career, we knew the backstories and how difficult he was in the locker room. We get it. They didn't just have to keep beating a dead horse, man. We really could have done without that. Now, this past Friday, the DMX album, Exodus, the posthumously released album, Exodus, is here. And it is a great album. It's 13 songs, 39 minutes, 47 seconds. And it starts off with That's My Dog featuring the Lox. Then there's Bath Salts. And that's one of my favorite songs on this album because it features Jay-Z and Nas. And just those two alone, I mean, how can you go wrong? The fact that it's those two with DMX, I mean, hey, there's Dogs Out featuring Lil Wayne, Money Money with Moneybagg Yo. That's another one of my favorites. Hold Me Down featuring Alicia Keys. And unbelievably, he did a song with, Bono did a song with DMX called Skyscrapers. And I'm not a Bono fan, never have been, never will be. Never was a U2 fan, never have been, never will be. But Bono is doing the hook on Skyscrapers, and it is a really good song. Overall, this album is an instant classic in my opinion, especially for a posthumously released album. Stick Up Skit. Stick Up Skit. There's Hood Blues featuring West Side Gun and Benny the Butcher. And y'all know how I feel about Griselda. It's the whole Griselda gang. West Side Gun, Benny the Butcher, and Conway the Machine on Hood Blues. Take Control featuring Snoop Dogg. Walking in the Rain featuring Nas again. There's an Exodus skit. Letter to My Son, Call Your Father featuring Usher. And The Prayer at the end. And if you don't get the feels from listening to this album, you have no soul. You have no empathy. You have no sympathy. You have no spirit. As a hip hop fan, as a DMX fan, I really appreciated this album because this is our farewell to one of the hip hop greats, and this provides a vintage Swizz Beatz, one of the greatest producers of his age, of his generation, of one of the greatest producers in hip hop ever. And it gives me the old school, the vintage Swizz Beatz when he first hit the scene in the 90s, man. So please check out Exodus. Now, as we all know, the NBA playoffs are going on right now. And, man, there have been some really good games. And a lot of people, well, I ain't going to say a lot of people, but the fans are not really helping this whole pandemic debacle. Now, with some arenas, some teams are allowing fans to attend, and with those arenas that are allowing these fans, those fans are just slowing up this process, because athletes are there to play a game. And I get it. A lot of us are serious about our fandom for these teams, but at the same time, these are men doing their job. Men doing their jobs, man. I get it. They're millionaires. You see them on TV. They're celebrities, some of them. They have commercials. They're in movies. They're on TV shows. But they're doing their job. So the New York Knicks are playing the Atlanta Hawks, and Trae Young, he's a young all-star. He's going to have a bright career. He's the leader. He's the star point guard for the Atlanta Hawks, and they had a game against the New York Knicks at the legendary Madison Square Garden. And, you know, the Hawks have been kicking their ass this whole series, and one fan spat on Trae Young, and if that's not disrespectful, I don't know what to tell you. Now, Trae Young had every right to turn around and beat that man's ass. And another thing that happened when Russell Westbrook was getting removed from the game, he's leaving the game. He plays for the Washington Wizards, and one of the fans for the Philadelphia 76ers throws popcorn on him as he's leaving the arena. And who raised y'all? Who fucking raised y'all? Ja Morant, star point guard for the Memphis Grizzlies. He's a young, I don't even know who to compare him to, but he's kicking ass. He's probably one of the smallest guys on the court, but he plays big game. I've watched some of the Grizzlies games, man, and he is the real deal. He is the future of this league, man, and he's been showing out. The Memphis Grizzlies, they're the 8th ranked seed, and the Utah Jazz, they've had the number 1 record. They have the best record in the league for most of this season. So they're playing the Utah Jazz in Salt Lake City, and it was reported that some of the fans in Salt Lake City were saying disrespectful and racist things towards Ja Morant and his family. And Ja Morant's family's seeing this stuff. And that's just not allowed, man. You gotta know your fucking boundaries as a fan. I get it. You want to cheer. I get it. You want to boo. You want to talk some shit. But hey, man, have some class. Have some class, Salt Lake City. Have some class, Philadelphia. Have some class, New York City. Because things like that is what makes the malice at the palace happen. A lot of people look down at Ron Artest, who's currently going by Meta World Peace. And, you know, my only hang up on the Malice in the Palace was that he didn't come after the guy that really pushed him. He did a flagrant foul on Ben Wallace. Ben Wallace pushed the fuck out of Ron Artest. And I get it. I wouldn't want no smoke with Ben Wallace. It's Big Ben fucking Wallace. I get it. But when the fan threw the beer on him, he had what was coming to him. Now, apparently, the guy that was attacked wasn't even the guy that did it. He just got caught in the unfortunate crosshairs. But if some shit like this happens again, that should have been it. Malice at the Palace, that should have been a fair warning for future fans, for current fans, for fans forever. The fans get out of line, those athletes have every right to beat that ass. That should be a rule. They should be allowed to beat one ass beating per game. The fans get out of line, one ass. Fuck banning them for life. Fuck banning them from the arena. Fuck banning them. No. You need your ass beat, because how would you like it if someone just fucking slapped the buns out of your hand when you're trying to put those double cheeseburgers together at your job? No, you wouldn't like it. You wouldn't appreciate it. You gotta get those patties back out of the fucking bag and get back to work, because that's a done burger. And as much as I hate the Golden State Warriors, I know my place as a fan. I still have to have respect for them because they're essentially entertaining me. That man has a family. Word to Jim Ross. How would you like it if someone threw popcorn on your son, on your husband when they're doing their job? How would you like it if someone poured some beer over your kid's head? You come to the game to see your child play and someone calls them a nigger? Huh. Yeah, Malice in the Palace. Y'all gonna get some of mama's cooking. Now, it's May 30th, and usually I say, oh man, a lot of things happen on this day, but I would be lying to you for May 30th. Sorry, May 30th. But I do my research throughout the week for every episode, and, some things happen. In 1985, Cameo released the album Single Life. I'm living the singer life. That's a great album. Great song. And in 2003, Finding Nemo and The Italian Job premiered. Both of those I consider classics, but not enough to give them space on my show like that. In 2004, Something the Lord Made premiered in theaters, and that was the movie that had Mos Def. He played a doctor, and Alan Rickman. 2014, Maleficent premiered, and I never watched that movie. I plan on it, and I call myself an Angelina Jolie fan. How can you call yourself an Angelina Jolie fan when you haven't seen Maleficent? Well, I think she's hot. Now, maybe if Portia Williams played Maleficent, I definitely would have watched it. I would have owned the DVD, the box set, the whole fucking shebang. And in 2014, on that same day, A Million Ways to Die in the West premiered, and that was Seth MacFarlane's first live action movie. He had done Ted, and he had done some Family Guy deals, but this was Seth MacFarlane's first live action movie, and I remember watching this in the theaters, and boy did it stink. It had its moments. I'm a Seth MacFarlane fan. I think he has a great sense of humor. He's hilarious, but yeah, man, that was it. But more importantly, on May 30th in 1964, one of my favorite guitarists, and in my opinion, the best guitarist that's living, was born. Tom Morello. The legendary Tom Morello of the iconic band Rage Against the Machine, of the iconic band Audioslave, of Prophets of Rage. Tom Morello innovated the way you play guitar. Rage Against the Machine was my conduit into the rock and roll universe. Now, traditionally, growing up as a kid in the 90s, I was like the typical black boy. I listened to R&B and rap and R&B. And then I moved to Perrysburg, Ohio. And I was also a Wu-Tang fan since day one. And in 1997, as I'm going into my freshman year, Wu-Tang Clan debuted their album Wu-Tang Forever. And they went on tour with Rage Against the Machine that year. And I didn't know who they were, but I remember going to the barbershop and seeing the Rolling Stone that had RZA and Zach De La Rocha on the cover. I was like, okay, I know who RZA is. Who is this guy with the dreads next to him? And I read that whole article on the Rage Against the Machine Wu-Tang tour while I was waiting on my haircut. And even though I didn't attend any of those shows, I didn't see that tour, But that tour, the fact that they did that together, that piqued my interest. And I found out who Rage Against the Machine was and why a group like Wu-Tang would tour with them. And the more I learned about Rage Against the Machine, the more I fell in love. And now I consider them the best band ever. And Wu-Tang Clan is my favorite rap group of all time. And I wish I could just go in a time machine and be able to go to that show so I can appreciate it. And Tom Morello, with his guitar playing, he plays like a DJ scratching a turntable. He takes the plug out and puts it on the strings to create these different sounds that sound like you're using some kind of synthesizer or some kind of post-editing device. But none of that. It is just his hands and his guitar and his brain, his know-how, his ingenuity. And it was tough being involved in rock and roll music in the 90s, being a black teenager in everyday town, USA, Ohio in the 90s, listening to rock and metal, because my black friends who I knew from before moving to Perrysburg, and even my family, my cousins, my mom and my grandparents, they would look at it as Stevie listening to white boy music. And I didn't know how to respond to that. It pissed me off because I, at this point, am appreciating why people are into rock and roll. I get the energy, I get the spirit, the rebellious spirit. And I started listening to this stuff when I was at that rebellious age in my teenage years. But at the time it pissed me off and I didn't know how to combat that. I didn't know how to argue with that kind of intellect, with that lack of intellect. No disrespect to my family or my friends. But now, as a 37-year-old, I can tell them that rock and roll is not white people music. Metal is not white people music. There's a band called Living Colour. They did Cult of Personality, and their guitarist is one of the greatest guitarists of his era, Vernon Reid. Let's give flowers to Vernon Reid. He's considered one of the greatest guitarists of all time, not just of his era, his generation, but of all time. And even on that song, Cult of Personality, he lays a wicked, I'm using a white boy term, he uses a wicked solo on Cult of Personality, bro. And that solo is considered one of the greatest solos in all of rock and roll history. Yeah, that's right, that white boy music history. This black man, Vernon Reid, lays down this wicked, slamming solo in Cult of Personality. And if you open up your minds and give it an opportunity, give it a chance, you can understand why it's one of the greatest. A guy by the name of Jimi Hendrix, who I consider the king, the real king of rock and roll. Yes, the king of white boy music, that black man, James Hendrix. He did some amazing things with that guitar. Wicked things. Jimi Hendrix is rock and roll. He embodied the spirit, the soul of rock and roll. Some of his solo, every one of his solos, broke barriers. The man played the Star Spangled Banner at Woodstock. That shit is iconic, dog. I read his biography my senior year, and just his upbringing, he had a tough life. That is rock and roll. And he found a way. He found his outlet and created beautiful art. A man by the name of Little Richard created rock and roll, and motherfuckers don't want to give him his props. A black man, a gay black man from the South created this shit. And as long as I'm alive, I'm not going to allow motherfuckers to forget that. Fuck Elvis. Yeah, it had to be said. And I'm just giving you guys cliff notes of some of these great black musicians that were in rock and roll. Of course, there are countless others. Ike and Tina Turner, that was rock and roll. They're inducted into the White Boy Music Hall of Fame. Yeah, in Cleveland, Ohio. Go Ohio. Proud Mary, all of that, man. Even the group Seven Dust, their lead singer, LaJohn Weatherspoon, is a black man with long dreads. And when their debut album, the self-titled Seven Dust album, came out, I was already in high school. And this is around the time I was starting to get into rock and roll. And I was even in a band. I'm in a band now, but I started being in bands when I was in high school. And I could relate to LaJohn because he was a black man in a quote-unquote white man music world. But he rocks the fuck out of that shit. He does it like no other. And that's my thing too, man. You don't have to do what the white people do when you do your thing. You can do it in your own authentic, unique way. And who knows, you can do that shit better than them white boys. Who knows? Because Zach De La Rocha, the Hispanic lead, the front man of Rage Against the Machine, I think he's the best front man in all of rock and roll history. Better than your Mick Jaggers, better than Paul, I like John Lennon, Roger Daltrey, even Elvis, Bono, Michael Stipe, Kurt Cobain, Eddie Vedder. Some of those people I'm a fan of, but no one does it like Zach De La Rocha. And he ain't white. That man is an MC. That man is an MC with lungs that can go for days. He can shout, he can scream like the best of them. He can emote that energy, that rock and roll, that metal, that hard shit that metalheads love. Freedom! Yeah! He lets it belt out. And may I remind you, he ain't white. And his guitarist, Tom Morello, who's half white, but half black, is one of the greatest guitarists ever because he does his thing in his own way. And nobody could do Tom Morello shit better than Tom Morello, that half white, half black man. He has a brilliant mind, educated from Harvard. Yes, that Harvard. He was best buddies with Adam Jones of the legendary band Tool, another band I'm a fan of. And I actually got to see Tool live. They put on a great show. So Tom Morello, he's been a student of rock and roll. He's been a student of music. And maybe he gets some leeway because he's half white, but you know what? That shouldn't even fucking matter. The only thing that matters is if you rock. Do you make good music? And Tom Morello just did that. He does just that. The self-titled Rage Against the Machine album, Evil Empire, Battle of Los Angeles, Renegades, Audio Slave, Prophets of Rage, The Night Watchman. Thank you, Tom Morello. I don't know what my life would be. I don't know what rock and roll would be if there was no Tom Morello. What would Zach do? What would the drummer Brad Wilk do? Tim Comerford? Rock and roll and the music industry in general needed Tom Morello. We needed a Tom Morello in the 90s. We need a Tom Morello now. And this episode is different because, like I said, this is the series finale or the season finale of season 2, and I'm going to play some music from my band, Priests of Hiroshima, and we do white boy music. Yes, this black kid, this black man who is one of the frontmen of this rock and roll rap metal group. Yes. And our band, Priests of Hiroshima, is a heavily influenced by Rage Against the Machine. Priests of Hiroshima is a reference to one of the lyrics from Sleep Now in the Fire. I am the Nina, the Pinta, the Santa Maria, the Agents of Orange, the Priest of Hiroshima. Yes. So Ladies and gentlemen, you're going to be hearing some Priests of Hiroshima. Enjoy the show.
Foretold is our time of destruction and resurrection. Arise from the nothing. The thunder roars through the land like an ominous drum, a bone-chilling omen of what's to come.
And the 9 worlds fall into fire as the time in the cycle expires. A great winter will rise. Everything you worship will reach its demise. Every scholar and prisoner alike, no king nor peasant survives. And all the riches in life, armed with the coins that are placed on the rise.
Obliteration of all that is seen and unseen. A natural system of wiping the earth clean. Simultaneous cataclysms consume the wicked. Some preach salvation, only the foolish listen. Armies gather like lambs to the slaughter. Brothers kill brothers, sons and daughters. Over land and sea, the epic battles rage. While death and destruction spreads like a plague. You, believer in false God, you will soon witness it all gone. You will find it all was in vain. With those you in prison are free from the chains. You, now in the arms of despair. You, now made perfectly aware. You, like fire to the harvest, into the devastating season of darkness. The beginning of the end, the doom of the gods. Exposed to the world and the fools beside non-believers dead. Every face is shot, not a prayer's gonna stop. Ragnarok, brimstone from the sky, hellfire on the ground. At the end of days, the only silence is the sound. You could try to hold on to what you got, not a prayer's gonna stop. Ragnarok.
And the 9 worlds fall into fire as our time in the cycle expires. A great winter will rise. Everything you worship will reach its demise. And every scholar and prisoner alike, no king nor peasant survives. And all the riches in life are worth the coins that are placed on the rise.
And the flames stretched across the plains, devouring life until none remains. The heavens fall, the tides will turn, the sea will boil, sky will burn. A surge of aggression that greets the masses. The last savage, understand this is madness, self-destruction, desecration. And all you have to blame is everything you put faith in. You, believer in false God, you was soon witness it all gone. You will find it all was in vain. With those you in prison are free from their chains. You, now in the arms of despair. You, now made perfectly aware. You, like fire to the harvest, into the devastating season of darkness. It's the beginning of the end, the doom of the gods. Exposed to the world and the fools beside non-believers dead. Every face is shot, not a prayer's gonna stop. Ragnarok, brimstone from the sky, hellfire on the ground. At the end of days, the only silence is the sound. You could try to hold on to what you got, not a prayer's gonna stop. Ragnarok. And the dragons feed on our corpses. By inferno, we are
Today in sports history, in 1935, Philadelphia pitcher Jim Bivin retires Babe Ruth on an outfield grounder in Babe's final MLB at-bat. Ruth plays just one inning in Boston Braves' 11-6 loss to the Phillies at the Baker Bowl. In 1942, Satchel Paige pitches 5 innings to defeat the Dizzy Dean All-Stars 8-1. In 1951, Ezzard Charles beats Joey Maxim in 15 rounds for the heavyweight boxing title. In 1967, Yankee Whitey Ford, nearing 41 years old, announces his retirement from baseball. In 1971, Willie Mays hits his 638th home run, setting the NL record of 1,950 runs scored. In 1977, Cleveland Indian Dennis Eckersley no-hits California Angels 2-0. Go Ohio. Go Tribe. In 1983, AL President Lee McFarley suspends Yankees owner George Steinbrenner for 1 week for his public criticism of umpires. In 1985, in the Stanley Cup Finals at Northlands Coliseum in Edmonton Oilers take back-to-back titles, beating the Philadelphia Flyers 8-3 for a 4-1 series victory. Wayne Gretzky and Jari Kurri each post a goal and 3 assists. In 1986, Barry Bonds makes his MLB debut for the Pittsburgh Pirates. In 1987, Mike Tyson beats Pinklin Thomas by TKO in round 6 in Las Vegas to retain his WBC, WBA heavyweight boxing titles. And on that same day, Tony Tucker TKOs Buster Douglas in 10 rounds for the heavyweight boxing title. In 1996, Albert Bell uses a forearm to break up a double play and nearly breaks Brewers second baseman Fernando Vina's nose. Bell gets a 2-game suspension. And that was my half-assed sports report.
Before dysfunction gives way to reform, before we understand there's no consolation when you let cronyism sabotage our nation. Case in point, here come the elite. Put your shirt off your back and your shoes off your feet. Representative of vultures who overshadow the culture. Don't it feel like we're getting fucked over? The soldier's blood sealed up in a barrel of oil. Casualty of America's foil. Corrupt cops and broke correctional system. Cold-trapped Latinos and blacks in prison. Fist to the bullshit bureaucracy to silence the people with bullshit philosophy. If the meek inherit the earth, they gotta be willing to stand for it first. Doesn't really matter in a fight for your life. If the foot on your neck is a left or a right. When every politician in the house is caught, and they never show remorse even when they get caught. Steps to this road, gotta fix it. Trying to kick it to you, but you're not listening. The problem remains your attention. Metamorphosystem, gotta be a better way than this one. Break the poor man's back for the rich one. Shit's sick when you got the prescription. Metamorphosystem.
Politics fit by financial backers. Pandering panhandlers for animal practice. Democracy or a hypocrisy. Push forward on an envelope constantly. With the demon posses, carbon copies. Constitutions being used as proxy. Ancient views, believed by fools. No progress wearing cement shoes. Always doing what you already did, so you always got what you still wanna get. Going through the webs of hate and condemnation. The fucking the country, put a condom on our nation. Being killed by the sounds of silence. Closed mouths don't get fed the smilers. When you seek truth, it's easy to sense evil, but the older I get, the less I expect the people.
Doesn't really matter in a fight for your life. If the foot on your neck is a left or a right. When every politician in the house is caught, and they never show remorse even when they get caught. Steps to this road, gotta fix it. Trying to kick it to you, but you're not listening. The problem remains your attention to teaching. Metamorphosystem, gotta be a better way than this one. Break the poor man's back for the rich one. Get sick when you got the prescription. Metamorphosystem. same, or we could be the change. The possibilities are beyond what we can see.
To bring about a political revolution where millions of people begin to stand up and finally say, this great country and our government belong to all of us, not just a handful of billionaires.
Metamorphosystem, gotta be a better way than this one. Break a poor man's back for the rich one. Shit sick, but we got the prescription. Metamorphosystem.
In today's birthdays for May 30th, happy 40th birthday to American rapper Remy Ma. Fine! Turning 47 today is American singer, songwriter, pianist, producer, and actor CeeLo Green. Turning 49 today is Dominican-American baseball player, coach, former Indian, and Boston Red Sox, Manny Ramirez, Manny being Manny. Turning 56 today is American basketball player and coach, Billy Donovan. Turning 57 today is American singer, songwriter, guitarist, and actor, Tom Morello, of the legendary Rage Against the Machine, Prophets of Rage, and Audioslave. Thank you, Tom Morello. Thank you. Also turning 57 today is American singer, songwriter, guitarist, and actress Winona Judd. Turning 63 today is American actor Ted McGinley. A lot of us 80s babies recognize him as Jefferson Darcy from Married with Children. Turning 72 today is American basketball player and coach PJ Carlesimo. You know, the guy that got strangled by Latrell Sprewell. If you haven't heard about Anchor, it's the easiest way to make a podcast. Let me explain. It's free. You know what that means, right? You pay nothing. It's free 99. It's a free app that you put on your phone, and it lets you go from there. There's creation tools that allow you to record and edit your podcast right from your phone or your computer. Anchor will distribute your podcast for you so it can be heard on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, iTunes, many more. You can make money from your podcast with no minimum listenership. It's everything you need to make a podcast in one place. Check out Anchor.
Call me from the businesses. We need a boy, got him, show him what the business is. Surrounded by xenophobes with a bleeding nose, they ain't satisfied till my dispositions decompose. Alphabet villains got me on speakerphone. Maybe I'm paranoid, I need to leave a reefer alone. Just a nervous wreck, use a Percocet, targeted by mass murderers who never earn respect. Different levels of pressure from the society. Anxiety has got me escaping my sobriety. They hate you, sedate you, belittle and berate you. The same mind to blatantly miseducate you. Aerosol cans burn the world with a mist of straight greenhouse gases. Leave you in a disarray. You gotta see the signs on the walls, then write it. We call attention to it so the flame can be ignited. With your critical mass, cold brand. Watch another man child boil over bread. Atrocities carried out at all behest. Biological warfare to melt the flesh. Cover up the tracks. A genocide, effective mind control. Written in the sky, some refuse to see the truth. They love the lies. Ignorance is bliss. Ain't no wonder why you can build a Mercury Rise. Mercury Rise. Mercury Rise. Atomic scores burn thee rise. Burn thee rise. Burn thee rise. The state of emergency. Rise. Emergency. Rise. Emergency. Rise. You can build a Mercury Rise. Mercury Rise. Mercury Rise. Stumbling blind through these troubling times. And seldom the punishments cause I'm fit for the crime. Fat cats feeding their mouths right in the faces of poverty. Lives tossed to the side. Human race is a novelty. Economy spiraling right out of control. Needed at home. Only a matter of time till we achieve annihilation, lest we hold accountable the criminals in violation. Political families affiliated with Nazis, successes or failures, Bin Laden or Benghazi. Gotta be certain to keep sight of the nemesis. Congressional sessions full of the whitest supremacists. They label us the enemy of the state, but we ain't got shit on the enemies they create. Sealing our fate, nuclear global combustion, speeding on a crash course of total destruction. Reaching critical mass, Colonel Brand, watch another man die over a local grid. Atrocities carried out at our behest. Biological warfare to melt the flesh, cover up the tracks. A genocide, effective mind control in the thick disguise. Some refuse to see the truth, they love the lie. Ignorance is bliss, ain't no wonder why. You can feel the Mercury rise, Mercury rise, Mercury rise. Atomic scorch birthday, rise, birthday, rise, birthday, rise. State of emergency, climb, emergency, climb, emergency, climb. You can feel the Mercury rise, Mercury rise, Mercury rise. It's getting hot. It's getting hot. It's getting hot. It's getting hot. It's getting hot.
Warlord armies rocking from your home, leaving your family starving to the bone.
It's getting hot.
American dream, American doubt. A nation built on immigration, trying to keep them out.
It's getting hot.
Pro-life terrorists shoot up a clinic. Pro-death disguised as God's vision.
It's getting hot.
People dying in the name of religion, innocent victims of a different opinion.
Fucking it up, counting it down, taking it all, cutting us out, killing us all, bleeding us out, keeping us down. Holding them up, beating them down, kicking them out, tearing it down, building it up, changing the world, making it sound. Fucking it up, counting it down, taking it all, cutting us out, killing us all, bleeding us out, keeping us down. Holding them up, beating them down, kicking them out, tearing it down, building it up, changing the world, making it sound, taking it all in, pass it around.
In a special mention to those no longer with us, this past Monday we lost American singer John Davis. Born on August 31st, 1954 in Anderson, South Carolina, he was a backup singer for Milli Vanilli and the real Milli Vanilli, who along with other backup vocalists provided the real vocals for Milli Vanilli. He sang the 1989 song Girl You Know It's True. Davis died on May 24, 2021, age 66, from COVID-19 in Nuremberg, Germany. This past Friday, we lost American professional basketball player Mark Eaton. Born January 24, 1957 in Inglewood, California, he spent his entire career from 1982 to 1993 with the Utah Jazz of the National Basketball Association. He was named an NBA All-Star in 1989 and was twice voted the NBA Defensive Player of the Year in 1985 and 1989. Though limited offensively, the 7'4" Eaton became one of the best defensive centers in NBA history. He led the league in blocks 4 times and holds the NBA records for single-season blocks with 456 and career block shots per game average. Eaton died on May 28, 2021 at age 64 after a bicycle accident in Park City, Utah. He was found unresponsive by a passerby and was pronounced dead at the hospital. Just yesterday, we lost American actor Gavin MacLeod. Born Alan George C. on February 28, 1931 in Mount Kisco, New York, he's best known for portraying Merrill Steubing, the ship's captain on ABC's The Love Boat. A Christian activist and author whose career spanned 6 decades, he also appeared as a guest on several talk, variety, and religious programs. MacLeod's career began in films in 1957, starring in movies such as The Sword of Ali Baba, A Man Called Gannon, and Kelly's Heroes. MacLeod also achieved continuing television success, co-starring opposite Ernest Borgnine on McHale's Navy as Joseph Happy Haynes and on The Mary Tyler Moore Show as Murray Slaughter. MacLeod died at his home in Palm Desert, California on May 29, 2021, aged 90 after a period of ill health. No cause was given. Big L was an American rapper and songwriter. Born Lamont Coleman on May 30th, 1974 in New York City, he emerged from Harlem in the early to mid-1990s, and Coleman became well known amongst underground hip-hop fans for his freestyling ability. He was eventually signed to Columbia Records, where in 1995 he released his debut album, Lifestyles of the Poor and Dangerous. On February 15, 1999, Coleman was shot 9 times by an unknown assailant in East Harlem, New York, his hometown. He died from his injuries. Mel Blanc was an American voice actor and radio personality. Born Melvin Jerome Blanc on May 30th, 1908 in San Francisco, California, he began his 60-year career performing on radio, and then he became known for his work in animation as the voices of Bugs Bunny, Daffy Duck, Porky Pig, and most of the other characters from the Looney Tunes and Merry Melodies theatrical cartoons during the golden age of American animation. He later voiced characters for Hanna-Barbera's television cartoons, including Barney Rubble on The Flintstones and Mr. Spacely on The Jetsons. During the golden age of radio, Blanc also frequently performed on the programs of comedians including Jack Benny, Abbott and Costello, and Burns and Allen. Blanc was nicknamed the Man of 1,000 Voices and is regarded as one of the most influential people in the voice acting industry. Blanc began smoking cigarettes when he was 9 years old. He continued his pack-a-day habit until he was diagnosed with emphysema, which pushed him to quit at age 77. On May 19, 1989, Blanc was checked into Cedars-Sinai Medical Center in Los Angeles by his family when they noticed he had a bad cough while shooting a commercial. He was originally expected to recover. Blanc's health then took a turn for the worse, and doctors found that he had advanced coronary artery disease. After nearly 2 months of staying at the hospital, Blanc died on July 10, 1989 at Cedars-Sinai of complications from both illnesses. He was 81 years old. He is interred in Hollywood Forever Cemetery, Section 13, Pinewood Section, plot number 149 in Hollywood. Blanc's will stated his desire to have the inscription on his gravestone read, "That's all, folks," the catchphrase that was the hallmark of Blanc's character, Porky Pig. Rest easy, y'all.
I think I hear them shooting. They treat me like I'm half mutant. I redesign internal workings of revolution. Noise polluting, convoluted riot looters, religious zealots, Hail Marys, hallelujahs. I'm crafted to be callous, no laughter for your malice. They wanna catch me sleeping like Red Hampton on a mattress. A walking target practice. Black lives matter. I'm on a stairway to heaven, reaching for a ladder. Public enemy number one under the sun. I was born coming out of the womb under a gun. Elephant in the middle taking up all the room. Couldn't walk down the street for the neighborhood platoon. Back into the time frame, following the present. History repeats itself, teaching us an early lesson. Cause they warring on citizens, boarding out immigrants, securing the homeland. Warriors, the gentlemen.
In spite of the darkness of this hour, we must not despair. Somehow we must believe that the most misguided among them can learn to respect the dignity and the worth of all human personality.
Pass the torch to me, brother. Pass the torch to me, brother. Pass the torch to me, brother. They trying to burn us down. Passing the torch to my brother. Passing the torch to my brother. Passing the torch to my brother. Don't let them burn us down. Pass the torch to me, brother. Pass the torch to me, brother. Pass the torch to me, brother. They trying to burn us down. Passing the torch to my brother. Passing the torch to my brother. Passing the torch to my brother. Don't let them burn us down. Freedom is just a sensation. Rapid glorification. Force feeding complacence. Teach the sheep to be patient. And it spans generations. The great deception we're facing. A salute to Freemasons. One nation under surveillance. That's a harsh realization. They just waiting to touch it. Ain't no need to confront you. They got you right where they want you. Cops are corporate Gestapo. Flex their arms to enforce. It's open season on villains killing civilians for sport. A government for the people. As long as we just keep calm. Millions of voices ignored. Is it not clear something's wrong? They lock and dead both the doors. All we need is a window. Symphony of injustice about to reach its crescendo. Remember Freddie Gray, Tamir Rice, Eric Garner, Jordan Baker, Arthur Sterling, tears crushing. Many lives destroyed by hatred. Light a candle for Philando. Cops bloodshot like Rambo. Who ain't gonna stand up, bust back and got fed up? Say fuck that.
Martin Luther King dedicated his life justice between fellow human beings. He died in the cause of that effort.
Pass the torch to me, brother. Pass the torch to me, brother. Pass the torch to me, brother. They trying to burn us down. Passing the torch to my brother. Passing the torch to my brother. Passing the torch to my brother. Don't let them burn us down. Pass the torch to me, brother. Pass the torch to me, brother. Pass the torch to me, brother. They trying to burn us down. Passing the torch to my brother. Passing the torch to my brother. Passing the torch to my brother. Don't let them burn us down.
Say my name, you claim that you serve and protect. As my head is on the curb and you standing on my neck. Say my name for these shady plans built from hollow laws. They wanna mimic the old days of Holocaust. Say my name for the victims of your jurisdiction, those depicted as criminals fitting your description. Say my name for the misunderstood common man, for women abused, mistreated just like Sandra Bland. Say my name for those locked in a war zone, those disposed of in cold just like Corey Jones. Say my name for those deleted at your discretion. Just be prepared and aware for the resurrection.
You saw wrong and tried to right it. Saw suffering and tried to heal it. Saw war and tried to stop it. Those of us who loved him pray that what he was, what he wished for others, will someday come to pass for all the world.
And what I wish for me is what I wish for you too. And what I wish for him is what I wish for her too. And what I wish for them is what I wish for us too. And what I wish for all is what I wish for me too. It's what I wish for me too. It's what I wish for me too.
So that wraps up season 2 of Over the Culture. Once again, I want to thank everyone who has been listening all the way up to this point. If you listened to one episode and you dropped out and you just lost interest, I appreciate that. This is a late episode. I was doing an interview earlier with my buddy Matt's wife, Kendra, for her show, our sister show, Crushgasm. So please check that out every Wednesday. And I don't know when she's going to air my episode, but also check out my other show, Happened in the 90s. Thank y'all. Peace.